Hi Joel. Thanks. Hi, thanks for agreeing to talk about Tern Moss.
No problem.
I'm really interested to hear in how long have you been going there?
Probably my whole life. Since I was 1 or 2, we went there for family walks, to kick a ball about, to fly a kite, to walk dogs with our friends. But recently it's been, in the past 5 years, more wildlife based, photography based. I go there to take photos of wildlife. I go there just to relax with my friends, take a picnic blanket.
So 17 years really you've been going to Tern Moss?
Pretty much, yes.
Oh, amazing. What is it about the place that draws you there? Why do you like it so much?
Well, it's quite a nice open area, and on a sunny day it's great to be down there. But it's just a nice green area right next to an urban environment. Right, you go from houses on a main road straight to fields and trees, very luscious grass as well. There's a wide range of wildlife there as well, and it's an amazing place to be.
And talking about the wildlife, what kind of birds nest there, and how many species are there, would you say?
Well, there's about 35 species which nest on Tern Moss. There's about 50 in the surrounding areas, and about 67 species visit the area annually. There's many more though which just pass through, migrate over.
Yeah, gosh, there's absolutely loads then. Really.
Many.
And how does it change throughout the seasons, for the wildlife and the birds?
Well, in the summer there's lots of summer migrants which breed on Tern Moss. In the winter there's lots of birds which actually use the area for feeding. So there's large numbers of gulls which feed on the pitches when they're not being used and when it's flooded. There's also a jackdaw roost, which is a type of crow. They roost in numbers of like 500 in the trees at the back of Tern Moss.
And I've heard about rapidly declining breeds of birds on Tern Moss in that area. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, there's lots of species which use Tern Moss which are declining in numbers, but there's one species in particular which is really rapidly declining at the moment, called the willow tit. It's a species which is declining all across the UK and is completely absent from some counties. Greater Manchester is one where there's still quite a few of them, but the area Tern Moss and Chawnese is quite a stronghold for them, with about 10 pairs, which is quite a large number compared to how many is in Greater Manchester, which is only around 60.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
What's the most unusual bird you've ever seen at Tern Moss?
Oh, it's got to be a short-eared owl. I was down there for a walk one crispy morning, and a short-eared owl just flew over the trees, and it's definitely migrating from the moors where they breed to the coast where they feed in the winter. So it's just following the Mersey Valley, heading down to the coast. But it just took my breath away. Don't usually see them down there.
Well, magical moment then.
Very.
Yeah, amazing. What do you think would be worse then for all these birds that kind of live there and travel through? And because there's talk of fences being built, floodlights, and lots more football being played there, what do you think would be worst?
I mean, it'd all have a negative effect on wildlife, to be honest, but the floodlights are of particular concern of mine. I think they'd have a very, very harmful effect on all the wildlife in the area. There's studies that show that floodlighting will actually damage migrating birds. It'll send them off course when they're trying to migrate, because birds use the setting sun and stars at night to migrate, so the floodlighting will put them right off, and which is particularly important because the Mersey Valley is a migration path from the shore to the moors, as I've said, and birds migrating along that path might get sent off course, end up not on their breeding grounds in the moors, which would be quite devastating because a lot of moorland species are in decline, like the curlew, the snipe, and they all use the Mersey Valley to migrate, and I've seen them flying overhead on early mornings.
So it could really affect these birds, the floodlights?
Massively, yeah.
Massively. heard of any research about the impact of runoff rainwater from 3G pitches at all?
Well, I've not heard of any studies myself, but from my knowledge, I know it could be quite harmful because rainwater going onto the 3G pitches could take the rubber crumbs and microplastics off the pitches, and which would potentially end up in the Mersey River as it would flow onto the Termos, which is the natural floodplain. It would infiltrate through the ground and end up in the Mersey, which would then get taken out to sea. And it's a largely unknown area, but microplastic is a recent discovery, and it's believed that it could have a really harmful effect on wildlife, on humans. So it's quite scary, to be honest, the thought of more microplastics getting into the environment.
Yeah, pretty serious then.
Pretty serious.
What would you like to see happen to Turn Moss?
Well, I think there could be some improvements made to it. The car park's quite dodgy in my opinion. It's quite a scary area if I don't like going around. It's just a bit dark, there's broken glass there, it's not very well kept. So maybe that could be improved in some way. Maybe a small cafe, so that could encourage families to go down there, like I did as a child. And it would be quite nice to refurbish the change rooms there, so that the footballers would be they'd have more better access to the pitches if they could just once they've got wet and rained on in the winter, they could just come off the pitches, change into nice warm clothes and go home. Maybe some toilet blocks would be nice as well.
And lastly, do you have anything you would say to Gary Neville, any kind of message for him at all?
Well, being a Mancunian, it'd be, I know he's from the area and he probably feels like part of the community. It's quite a nice green area, and in my opinion, by taking it away from the community, for just a leisurely purpose of going down there with your family, flying a kite, by taking that away, you're potentially taking away that experience from a lot of children, because not everyone has the money to go outside of Manchester to the countryside and do that sort of stuff. So by taking away that area, you're potentially cutting off that experience from some kids. And would you really want to be doing that to your community, I guess is my question to Gary Neville. Would you feel okay with doing that to kids that grew up in the same area as you?
Thanks very much, Joel. It's
No
been
problem.
really interesting. Thank you.
Great, thanks.